All right, welcome back to another episode of Grow Your Grass Off. We have a guest here today who is a mentor of mine back in the day. His name is Tom Elpel, and he is the founder of Green University up in Pony, Montana. And he has traveled all over. He's into so many things like primitive skills, sustainability, permaculture. He's a homesteader. He's been at it for a long time. Tom, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Brandon. It's great to connect after all these years. So
Yeah,
awesome.
for sure. Yeah, it was 2009, if I remember right. And so that was kind of a big moment for me because I was like, all right, I need to explore. I need to figure out some things. And I was totally into survival. I watched Survivor Man and I was like, okay, I got to go trying this out. And Tom is an expert. You know, you could say he's a wild edible guy. He wrote a great book called Botany in the Day. And it's a university text they use a lot in schools. And so he has his method and he's done it for years and years. And so he's practiced all the primitive skills and done the Stone Age living. And that's a whole different, rabbit hole. But I think today we were going to zoom in more on the homestead piece, which I think is really interesting because I've done it a little bit. I haven't done it in Montana like you. Um, Obviously it's nice to see different climates. And so I've done tropical, I've done kind of more, I grew up in Alabama, so I kind of got that exposure to that a little bit more, temperate climate. And then having exposure to Utah, where I grew up as well, that was fun to, get used to those plants. And I know you're really practiced at the sort of the Rocky Mountain zone, right? With all those wild edibles and stuff. But as a homesteader, maybe we can just start out with you explaining, basically what your property is like and, what your goals were and still are, for that property and what you have going on there.
Sure. Yeah. So we got a 5 acre parcel here in Pony, Montana, southwestern Montana, about 80 miles north of Yellowstone National Park. And really, basically 21 years old, got married, bought land, moved into a tent, started building the homestead. And to me, my background coming from the wilderness survival skills side of it was less from a permaculture perspective or even a homesteader perspective, but the wilderness survival priorities: shelter, fire, water, food, which tend to be prioritized in that order. So for me to really focus on the house building side of it, built a passive solar stone and log house here, working with very little money. I mean, we were kind of scraping by for sure. And then making it efficient and that it has wood heat, but we can also leave the house here, and there's no backup heat. We don't have to worry about the pipes or the plants freezing or anything. Have a great big greenhouse across the front of the house, more for aesthetics than for food, but there's always something that's edible in there, even in the depths of winter. Something green you can throw in a sandwich. And then, of course, planting the landscape out from that point. And so, yeah, so those survival priorities is basically having a place that's mortgage free has given me the freedom to do whatever I want in life. So that's been huge. Food has been just a little bit farther down the priority list. Always like to grow food, and so been planting here for 34 years now, and uh, don't grow a lot of food. I also travel a lot in summer, so it makes it difficult to maintain a garden and that. But have really permacultured the place with trees to the greatest extent possible. The challenge here, I think, is that we're got a great solar site, a great shelter site that's a south facing slope here. Actually has gravity fed water, which is amazing. But as far biologically speaking, this was a grassland. It wants to be a grassland, and so my efforts in planting have always sort of been counter to that, and have planted a lot, but sometimes don't produce a lot. Well, most years don't produce a lot, but like this last winter, for example, we had some 30 below weather, and and lost like had 2 years worth of winter kill. So it killed all of last year's growth and the year before. So like my plum trees, and they're some of the hardiest things I have. Um, they were still just trying to leaf out like at the end of June. And so of course they didn't produce any flowers this year, no fruits. I didn't even, really, I mean, like I got a couple of apples this year. So some years, get more or less, but uh, not a ton of food, but get what grow what I can, and forage a lot elsewhere.
Nice. Yeah, I watched a video of yours recently where you had the pond construction with Zach Weiss. That was brilliant. I thought it was really great to see how, because I visualized it. I remember being at your place there, and it was fun to kind of see like how that created habitat and how it sort of allowed you to enjoy the space more.
That's been super exciting. I came up the driveway today. There's like 3 deer right there by the pond, went bounding off as I came driving by. And yeah, I've really been in the mode of trying to finish up some old projects. And that one, had a neighbor dig out a hole for a pond 20 some years ago. And so yeah, just last year, yeah, and this whole homestead's been a do-it-yourself project, so this is different for me to hire a contractor to come in. Really great working with Zach and Megan, and they dug it out and sealed it with bentonite clay. We put a nice rock surface over that, and it just it's kind of re-energized my enthusiasm about the homestead in terms of yeah, this is coming together. Of the homestead that I've envisioned having, I guess. And so yeah, just super exciting. Even it doesn't necessarily produce food either, but super exciting in terms of more biologically active, more happening here on the property.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. The reflective nature of it too could potentially, help too. And I think water does amazing things on a landscape. Having that aesthetic is important too, I think. Well, let's transition. We've got another question here. What are your top three tips that you wish you had known, back when you were starting up? What could you say if you look back? What would those be?
Sure. I think probably the first one is was trying to plant too widely. And I know that's a permaculture principle, is to plant close where you can take care of things. And I was like planting all over this property wherever there were little ecological niches that seemed like they would favor fruit trees and whatnot. So just ended up being spread thin everywhere, and then having difficulty watering and maintaining even fencing and whatnot, trees just all over the property. So planting closer to the zone 1, zone 2, I think just huge, would have made a big difference here. And number 2 was actually adding timers for the water systems, because um, so when we first planted the trees and going to running around with from the hose from tree to tree, I wasn't very good about keeping up with it. Actually got better now when I met you. We were living over in Silver Star and building the stone house over there, and I put everything here on timers, and so the trees actually started doing better when I wasn't here. So I had them on timers like that. And I think the third thing is stick mulch. Is that being on this dry, kind of sandy hill, organic matter of any kind is precious. And the thing is that I might bring like straw, put it over the landscape, it just blow away, or it didn't really seem to build up, didn't produce organic matter. Same thing, get a load of leaves and put them on the landscape, and there would be nothing left in the future. But once I mean, it really has taken most of my time here. Like it's probably first 25 years before I started like clipping, trimming, trees. And now I have a lot, like a couple of truckloads of branches a year as I do my tree trimming. And I found that just to be incredibly effective to create microclimates. I put it out even just on the pasture, like where there's bare ground, And so just chop it into pieces that'll kind of settle in enough so you can walk through there. But it creates a lot of little microclimates that helps. One of the real challenges you have here is this freeze thaw, where any exposed ground is susceptible to freezing and thawing cycles that dry it out over the winter. And so new seedlings are not able to get established in that because it makes the soil all kind of dry and puffy. And so just throwing sticks out on the landscape creates a lot of little microclimates that helps improve seedling germination. And so that's been super helpful thing here that I think
Yeah.
more people, and it's like it's hard to come up with wood chips.
Yep.
Uh, but yeah, sticks. I mean, there's lots of sticks in the world.
I agree. I've done that too, and you mulch it up and it's kind of a hot mess, but at the end of the day, like you said, you achieve a lot of organic matter. You get the fungal hyphae going, you get extra habitat, you get a lot of surface area for things to move around. And for me here in Costa Rica, as an example, um, things break down so fast. Like it's really
Uh-huh.
incredible. Yeah, you put a branch, and it rains, and it's like it almost disintegrates. So you have to almost do double,
That's hard to
what
imagine.
you think you need. Yeah. Um, cool. I think for me too, the thing that came to mind. This is more permaculture type methodology too, but the quintessential food forest, I think if you watch Jeff Lawton, some of these other guys, they're always trying to stack it in time, which is, you're looking at your nitrogen fixing trees first, to
Mhm.
create the biomass and also to regenerate the soil ideally, right? So you've stacked it where those you coppice, those you turn into the ground, like you're saying. And so you actually have dedicated trees to do that too, that could, and they
Right.
tend to be the pioneer species. They tend to grow really fast, and so you've got this way to sort of supercharge your system. So as a homesteader, maybe that goes in alignment with kind of what you're talking about too, is it's okay if the deer, chew on that one a little bit too, right?
Yeah, and I've planted like caraganas or what else call it, Siberian pea shrub,
Mm-hmm.
basically that
Mm-hmm.
good nitrogen fixer, and that's helped to establish some habitat to where like raspberries can grow in the shade of those. But keeping in mind that living where we do, we have 6 to 7 months of winter, and so our trees leaf out in mid-May, and then basically by the end of June, it's drying up here to the point that the growth is slowing down. It's still be green for a while, but growth is kind of slowing down. So really have 6 weeks of growth out of an entire year.
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't matter what you plant, there's limits to how fast things happen here. I'm always astonished when I see, oh, we planted this, food forest 3 years ago, 5 years ago, and they're walking underneath it, because I've planted trees that are 20 years are still, shorter than me. So it's just a little different reality here. There's ways to speed things up, but there's always limits here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Totally. You got to understand your microclimate and the fact that you're in a sunny pocket, that must help. So, what about, can you explain, what did it take you and what does it still take you to create and maintain your space, on your homestead? Because, like you mentioned, you've got your books that you go into the idea of how you've been resourceful, you can save money, and you've done it a different way. And I really always admired that, about the fact that you could look at something and say, well, that's the reality, for a lot of people. But for me, I'm going to flip the script and I may endure a little, but I'm going to benefit in other ways. Right. And so I guess my question is also the fact that in today's world, maybe the economy is harder, than it was in the recent past. So I still think the hacks are out there, but what would you say to that?
Well, as far as the economic situation, there are many aspects that are more difficult, which also makes it more rewarding to to seek out an alternative pathway, and and that's a big thing our students at Green University get out of it is just like the realization that they don't have to do the 9 to 5 thing, that they can pursue their own dreams, and and I've had students that have gone off and purchased their own homestead and just kind of step it out of the system. And you can do that as, if you're, say, buying land that's far from any place, for example. But I think even better, really, and it's not like we need more houses in the world, or more homesteads for that matter. There's plenty of development already. But if you get into small rural towns, there's still many parts of the U.S. where you can buy a fully functional house for, say, 30,000, 40,000, $50,000. And so, like for somebody that, say, works, if you work for like a couple of years at a job and you avoid paying expenses in the process, like an easy one would be wilderness therapy work where you're living on the trail, then you can save up nearly 100% of your income, pay off the house and land with cash, not have to pay interest on a mortgage, and then you're kind of set, and you can, continue to improve that over time. So it's very doable. I've had students that have done it, even like just tanning hides, have been able to pay for a homestead and secure their long term freedom that way. So um, the the amount that you can save, I mean, is uh, I guess one way to look at it is that if you want to buy a house that's close to a job, the house itself is going to cost three times what it would be if you buy the same house in some place where there isn't work available. And so so there's not just the savings on an interest, on a mortgage, but also that just that you can get a high quality house in a place where employment options aren't really available. And then so if you're willing to take a couple of years where you sleep, do some couch surfing, or van life, whatever it takes to minimize your expenses, put all your money into to savings, buy your homestead. Once you've got that, it doesn't take that much to sort of do the, to, yeah, you always need some income, but it's not like you got to work a full-time job for that. And you can secure your freedom in a matter of a few years and be set for life.
Nice. Yeah. What would you say though, in terms of your homestead, now that you're on it, let's pretend,
Hmm.
what would you say if you're giving somebody advice on how much does it take out of your day to create your space? And obviously you've stated your goals, in terms of you want the ambiance, you want to be functional, you want to save money because that's a part of your homestead, right? Is that it's not so much a liability like a lot of people's houses are, right? It's not draining you, it's actually adding to your life more, right? Because it's energy efficient.
Right.
You don't have a big payment hanging over your head. You've got
Right.
the beauty and all of the things that help your positive environment to live in. So yeah, but obviously that's a lot of work on the front end, but what do you think as far as the maintenance?
Well, one thing I think is true of any, like, if you go buy a house, built by a professional, brand new, whatever, you still need to invest in the structure, in the landscaping every year. If you wait 20, 30 years, you just have, a big, um, you know, big bill at the end, basically. And so I always make it a goal. I try to do. It doesn't always happen, but I try to do like one kind of home improvement project. Particularly, like I try to get an energy improvement project. There's always ways to fine tune a house, make it better. So I'm always trying to fine tune the house. Actually, this desk you can see a little bit right here on the edge of it. I just installed this week, so that's this kind of L-shaped desk that the computer's on, kind of classing up this. As a writer, I'm now on my desk in the house here, so a little bit over the top on that, but always doing improvements, and then on the landscape as well, and so yeah, just always making it better. Yeah, and then there's some maintenance, like I was talking about, trimming the trees. It's like I spent all those years planting trees to get beautiful landscaping here, and now I have quite a bit of maintenance. Probably a couple days every year where I'm out cutting them all down. And I
Right.
plant all the small as you're planting. So Yeah, these work. And I've with having 5 acres and it being dry land pasture is requires animal grazing and impact of the hooves. And so I've been working to establish I have a sheep flock that goes between here and our Green University campus. And so I've put in sheep fencing and still going back through and adding gates and all that. But uh, it's 5 acres. It's 5 acres of work, and then our campus for Green University is another 20 acres, and we have a lot more projects there. I'm
Nice.
actually, 'cause I never really built. I never built an actual garage here. I have a small shop that's just 12 by 16 feet, kind of like a workshop basically, and that's been fine. I don't really need, I don't really have to, since I don't have a 9 to 5 job, I don't have to thaw my, car out first thing in the morning. I just point it towards the sun, towards the morning sun. The sun comes up, defrosts the window. I don't have to scrape the ice. And so I haven't really needed a garage, but I started dreaming about building one. And I realized, before I do this, I just got to go through and finish up some of these old projects that I started, the pond being one of those, and just tie up old loose ends before I start something new. Because otherwise, you're just kind of walking past them all the time. It's like, oh yeah, I need to take care of this and take care of that, and
No,
uh,
that's an age old thing for sure. I agree. Um, Great. So yeah, maybe you could share with us what is it, maybe something that you were surprised about? What did you learn that surprised you, good or bad? It could be a success, or something, a hurdle you had to go through, when you look back at your homestead process.
really, I think that the biggest thing would be time. That you start out and anything that's 20 years down the line seems like a really long time when you're younger, which and it's crazy now to think about it, but just so many things, whether it's like a water heater or even a asphalt shingle roof, it's only good for like 20 years.
Yeah.
Mine is a steel roof, so it's good for a lot longer, but 20 years goes by in the blink of an eye. And somebody was I have a video that's kind of a walkthrough tour of my house on YouTube, and somebody commented on that, well, obviously built it well since it looks looks so new, which is true, and also the upkeep there. But so many houses are just falling apart after 20, 30 years, and that is just not any time at all. So I think that's the hardest thing to understand for someone who's starting out younger, is just how quickly you'll be looking back.
I agree. Yeah, and it's like once you dive in, even if you buy an older place, you have to fix it up. You kind of have that in your mind. But yeah, it's it's like there's just always going to be the maintenance, things never really stay still. So
Right. Yeah, and I totally believe in building things so that they're low maintenance or no maintenance, but you'll always have maintenance, even when you're planning for the long term. There's just always things that need to be taken care of.
yeah, got to plan it in.
Yeah.
Well, awesome, Tom. I really appreciate being on the show. Do you want to share what you're up to, your latest projects, or what do you want to highlight?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So one thing I'm working on an ecology book. Really kind of as a naturalist, you start out with sort of like naming things, and so of course that's what Botany in a Day is oriented towards: is how do you learn to identify plants quickly? And so I've built off of that. I have my children's, the adult book, the children's books, the card games that are super popular for learning plants quickly. I'm currently working on an ecology book for the West, which will take me years to complete. But really gone from the thinking about things in terms of naming them or how are they useful, to more of the why, why and how, why do these grow together? Why does this grow under these situations, and versus that. And actually, one thing is that I produced this game called Wildlife Web a few years ago, And this really gives you the opportunity to participate in the ecosystem, because it's a role player game, so you get to find out what it's like to be different wildlife, to to forage or hunt for food, to find a mate, to raise young to maturity. And so it's really surprisingly accurately simulates the functioning of an ecosystem. And so that's really the direction that I've been going, is these instead of just like what do we call things, what are their names, is how do all these interact with each other. And so that's been one step in that journey, and now I'm working on this ecology book, which is an immense project, but super excited about it.
That's great. I like that. To me, it makes me think of the idea that it's holistic, right? As best we can, you're basically trying to present what would it be like to be in that animal's shoes, right? And say,
Yes.
you know, put yourself there and now look at things, change your perspective, and see what it would be. It's fun to consider that, because I think in terms of permaculture, it makes a ton of sense, because things are so connected, right? And that's, I think, a huge, takeaway for me when it comes to, it doesn't matter if you're a homesteader or not, if you want to consider permaculture or not, it's when you go and live somewhere, you're a part of that web, right?
Yes. Yeah, and it's like there was a fox den on the hill here when we bought the place, and of course, building a house, having a dog, displaced that fox den, and I've always felt that right here. And actually, I have in the game, there's a house construction card that you have wildlife, and then some can be displaced by a house, and then you have cats, or dogs, or mice, or rats, or whatever living in the house, but displaces some of your wildlife.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Tom. I really appreciate you being on and connecting again, and maybe we'll get together soon sometime.
Yeah, well, hey, you live in Costa Rica, so maybe I'll come drop in.
That's a good idea. Yeah, you got to
Sounds
do.
awfully nice.
Yep, that sounds good to me.
So good to see you, Brandon.
All right, take care.
You too. Bye.